warm welcome to our live talk with Dacre Stoker, great grandnephew of Bram Stoker and author of several fictional and non-fictional books on Dracula. I'm Gloria Anderson. I run the travel company Experience Transylvania. We're based in Stockholm, Sweden, but I'm originally, just like Nora, from Transylvania. We're actually, Nora and we are sisters, and Nora is my co-presenter today, and also our excellent local guide. And we are honored to have Dacre Stoker as our tour leader during the Transylvania tour once again this year. And we are honored to have you all as guests during this interesting talk. Nora?
Thank you, Gloria. I'm Nora. I'm a local guide here in Transylvania. And actually, this year I'm celebrating 20 years since I've been guiding. 2005, oh my gosh, was my first tour. And it's really always such a pleasure to work with my sister, but especially with Dacre Stoker, who is just amazing to have with us. His insights on what we are doing during these tours are just priceless. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. And I'm looking forward to introduce you a little bit in the Transylvanian atmosphere and get to let you know what we're going to be doing during the tour. Thank you so much. And Dacre, welcome.
Yep. Thanks to both you and Gloria. I think this is number 15 years that I've been coming here. Actually, 15 times I've been coming here over about 10 years. And what these ladies have, there's things that I cannot provide, which is all the wonderful logistics, the bus routes, all the best ways to get around, all the food. So they take care of the really important part of the journey. For me, what I provide is the links to my great-granduncle Bram Stoker, where he got his information from, how it applies to the locations that we go to. We actually go to spots that he marked in some of the books in his research. We'd actually do some of the reading from some of the things that he wrote on the spot where he actually meant to have them, even though he never came to Romania himself. You'd be amazed how accurate Uncle Bram was based on the research that he did. And I have a great time over these tours bringing that to you all to bring this book back to life. Glorious.
Excellent, Dacre. Thank you so much for this excellent symbiosis that we can provide our guests with the logistics of our company and your excellent, well-grounded research and simply being such a great tour leader, just to make it short. So, yeah. So what we're going to talk about today, as you know, we are going to run through the itinerary of the upcoming Transylvania tour. But of course, we cannot do that without touching upon some hot topics like Nosferatu. Also, of course, digging through other older but still very hot topics like Vlad the Impaler and fictional figure Count Dracula. All the connections, of course, we're not going to be able to run through them today as it's endless. But first of all, of course, we are going to just talk a little bit about Transylvania and Romania, and then run through the 3-day itinerary, just talk a little bit about the hotels, other logistic details, booking details, and then we open up for the Q&A session. So lay back, relax, and enjoy, and let us hear a little bit about a guest's view on Romania, Dacre.
Yeah, it's always nice to have somebody from the outside tell you what a wonderful country that you come from and a wonderful country that we're going to visit. When I first started coming here, I had no idea of the contrasts that I would see in this country. Not only the very first world big countries, big cities within the country. Yes, they've got traffic and everything else. But once you get outside the cities, even though Bucharest is very cool, it's got a really great historic district. I personally like to get outside, even though the architecture is amazing and so on. But I'm a country kind of guy. I love the countryside. I think Bram did as well because he described it very well. But also Sighișoara, Târgoviște, some of these not super big cities that are old, very well preserved and very old, like you're walking back in time. And these photos that you see here are very realistic. Even though we don't go in the snow and see the cows pulling around all these sticks, we will see horses pulling the Literwagen, pulling massive amounts of hay and other produce and stuff. Still, you have this contrast between first world country, and within 30, 45 minutes, you're into third world villages, very similar to the times, of the medieval ages, and everything in between. So wonderful country, very safe, very scenic. Make sure you've got, your camera or your phone with lots of storage space, because it's a really very picturesque.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dacre. Once again, I love how, especially you, but all my guests, all our guests, help me see my home country where I was born and raised. I'm always on the hunt for new information and unique insights, and to share that with my travelers. But sometimes it's my travelers who open my eyes towards things that are usual to me, like horse carriages, like you said, or the stork nests that we see all around in Transylvania. And for me, that's just, usual stuff, everyday life. But with your help and with the help of my guests, I actually realized that these things are unique to our country. So thank you so very much for that. And now we have what you can see on the screen is a historical map, or rather a map of historical regions of Romania that I made myself. This was from back in the day, where Transylvania, the region of Transylvania that nowadays pertains to Romania, used to be part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So you can see that there is a line between Transylvania, Moldavia, and Wallachia, which is the southern part of Romania, and which is the country that Vlad the Impaler actually ruled, not Transylvania, but we'll get to that. There's a lot of details here, historical ones, interlinked with literature, etc. The thing is, here on this map, you can see some key locations, key places in Wallachia and in Transylvania. We won't, during our tour, be going through all of them, but we will be going through the most important of them, and you're going to see how our itinerary kind of overlaps with Jonathan Harker's itinerary, which is fantastic. Yeah, right in the center, you can see Bran Castle on the border between Wallachia and Transylvania, and that is also one of our strong points on the tour. So key locations that we are going to be visiting.
You got the picture of what it was like, the perspective of what it was like when Bram Stoker was writing the novel, and the books that he looked at had those geographic separations of the different provinces. But now you see, really topographical map, and probably one of the most important things that Bram picked up on, again, in the maps in the London Library, was he described this as the horseshoe of the Carpathians. This is actually Bram Stoker's speaking as Jonathan Harker when he says, the horseshoe. Look at the Carpathian Mountains. The country is dominated by that huge mountain range. Of course, that means we have to drive up and down twisty roads when we're going around. That's part of the excitement and the fun and the beauty of the landscape. But also it means great irrigation. So you've got water coming off, snow coming off in the springtime, irrigating all the incredibly good crops. So we've got great food year round. And as a result, the country doesn't have to do a whole lot of its own irrigation. But I think most importantly, once we get across the geographic significance of this, you've got to realize that Bram also has a great debt to somebody that Nora is going to talk about, and that's Emily Gerard. So let's just hand it off to Nora to talk about Emily Gerard, who opened up Bram's eyes to why the novel really should be placed in this Transylvania.
Absolutely. Scottish writer Emily Gerard. She actually lived in Transylvania. She lived in my town in Sibiu. She was married to a Polish general. He was part of the Austrian-Hungarian army that I was talking about, that had the Transylvanian territory under control. So she lived here, and she brought immense things to Dracula. We're going to talk about that also a little bit later, but superstitions that Transylvanians have. Later on, as we've learned from Dacre, Bram Stoker actually looked into her writings and took notes, and found a lot of inspiration in her works about the Transylvanian people and their superstitions.
Yeah, you can actually see a page of the notes right there that Nora just said. The heading, it's kind of small, but Transylvanian Superstitions. Bram took 3 pages of notes from this book that Nora just talked about, Land Beyond the Forest. And we'll get into some of that and some of the most important pieces. But the gist is, without her writing, this novel probably would have stayed in Austria, as his note showed. But because of this, he moved it to Transylvania, and he moved Vlad Dracula from Wallachia up into Transylvania for fictional purposes. So, okay, next slide, and we'll continue. There we go. So this is the book we're obviously talking about, and right now, super hot topic, because, you know, we're all thinking, what does Dracula have to do with Vlad the Impaler and Nosferatu, which is, you know, right now this horror movie that has got 4 Academy Award nominations. It's done great in the box office. So this is really good for us in the horror world. There's some other horror writers on here with me, but when we think about horror movies that always do, you know, sort of okay, but to get Academy Award nominations and do well in the box office, that's good for all of us, because then the people that, you know, take interest think, okay, I think we're going to be able to fund your movies now. I also just want to say, if you haven't seen the movie, I don't have any financial interest in it, but go see it, because it's really quite interesting. And it does deal with this guy right in the middle of the screen. So Nosferatu was actually a term that was floating around history even before Emily Gerard. And now there's this kind of race around the world to see, where did Emily Gerard get it from? If Bram actually picked it up from Emily Gerard, which we're going to see in a moment on another slide, where did it come from? And I don't go into detail now that the original movie was illegal adaptation. The water's under the bridge. The Stoker family did just fine. The movies continued. Florence Stoker, Bram's widow, did just. But I do want to draw your attention to this, though. Look at this image on the left side of your page, and you can see in from Emily Gerard's book, right? She says, more decidedly evil, however, is the vampire or Nosferatu, in whom every Romanian peasant believes as firmly as he does in heaven or hell. Every person killed by Nosferatu becomes a vampire, and so on and so forth. What Bram did after reading that excerpt, he then wrote this in the notes, as you can see. To kill vampire, drive stake through the corpse, or fire a pistol shot into the coffin, or cut off the head and replace the coffin with a mouthful of garlic, or extract the heart and burn the stew ashes over the grave. She delivered to Uncle Bram exactly how to deal with the vampire. And so that's the authentic folklore that he picked up on. And even though it may be completely accurate or not accurate, it doesn't matter. This is what his term of reference was. And he did find some other books that referenced his devil and vampires and so on, but this was the penultimate book. And of course, that's why right now it's so important, because everybody is like talking about the source of Nosferatu. Okay, now go to the next slide, and you'll see what he did with it in the novel. In chapter 16, you have an excerpt where the word is in red, and it definitely links Nosferatu to vampire Eastern Europe. You see this 2 places in chapter 16 and chapter 18. Chapter 16 is when Van Helsing is talking to Arthur, when they have to actually kill Lucy with the stake and go through the ritual. And then again in 18, when the band of heroes is now sort of, with Mina's help and Van Helsing, figuring out who the heck this Dracula really is. And it's this Nosferatu, do not die like a bee, and so on. So I'm not going to read it to you. You guys can certainly read it. But I think what's important is that there is a group of scholars, and I know Ingemar is one of them, and we chat about this this little group of where did the term come from. And I will be releasing more information on this upcoming trip because I have much more about the origin of it. So stay tuned on this. It's something that, you know, we like to do and say, you know, where did Bram get the info and how is it brought out to the world and what's gone on with it? Well, certainly it's gone on with all these movies. And before I hand over to Nora, one more cool picture here. This is an image from one of the books that Bram used in his research. I took a photocopy of the map and I drew on the photocopy, not the original book, this line which traces the train route that Jonathan Harker took as described by Bram, which he got out of the Baedeker guide, which is this German travel guide showing the exact times, the exact train routes between Klausenburg and Bistritz. And then Bram followed his map. As you can see, Bistritz right in the middle, up to none other than, where the arrow's pointing, the Borgo Pass. That's where we'll be going. The Borgo Pass was not something Bram made up. It was on the map. And then if you look at the little dotted line going down below Borgo Pass, it's very small. Hans de Roos helped decipher this based on Bram's notes, the lines of longitude and latitude that Bram left showing us where Bram's fictional castle Dracula is. Spoiler alert, it's an extinct volcano. More details on that, but it lines up exactly with Bram's notes and things taken out of the typescript. So what we're talking about here, folks, is we're going to be recreating on this trip parts of Jonathan, the most exciting parts of Harker's journey to get up to this beautiful, park, and hopefully weather permitting, as we'll talk about in a moment, we'll get up to the top. So Nora, back to you on how our trip will overlap in certain places with seeing other things along the way and Jonathan Harker's trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in addition to what you said earlier, Bram, your uncle Bram, did more fact checking that Facebook ever will, or any social media platform for the matter. And I think the accuracy of the descriptions and the accuracy of the timetables and everything like that, that's what actually gave credibility to the novel. But back to Jonathan Harker's itinerary, we're gonna do sort of like a reverse itinerary of what he did, because he came in through Oradea, then he went to Cluj, and from Cluj, which is Klausenburg in the novel, and that's the old German name of the town, he went up to where you said Borgo Pass, which is a real place, Borgo Pass. We're gonna do the reverse, going from Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania, a must see if you haven't done so already, and then we head up north, then northwest to reach Cluj-Napoca, which is where we will end our itinerary.
We do the blue line, and Harker and Bram did the red line, and you can see where they overlap.
Yeah, exactly. And the superposition of the itinerary is actually the highlight of this specific tour. We do offer this tour in different shapes and sizes. We did offer it throughout the years, but this is really cool because, as you said, Dacre, we go to the Kaliman Mountains, where you reveal a lot about part of the novel that was actually edited out. So we're really looking forward to that. During the tour, you see, it looks quite as a long itinerary. Well, it is a lot we experience, but travels are planned in such good way so that we do have the convenient stops. We aim at not driving for longer than 1 hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we have a convenient stop. Most of the bus trips per day don't last than 2-3 hours, actually, but sometimes we do have like 3 hours, and then we break those 3 hours into 2, and then we take maybe a lunch break or a coffee break, and make it much more exciting and efficient. And this is the kind of
Batmobile.
Yeah, the Batmobile. This is the kind of minibus that we are traveling in. Of course, if we will have a larger group, we will have a larger coach, but this is the standard size that we usually travel. We like traveling in smaller groups so that everyone gets the chance to talk to each other, to talk to Dacre, to experience a personal approach throughout the tour. And then we start with the itinerary description.
Obviously, it's convenient to fly into Bucharest, and you can see here I'm chatting to one of our earlier groups in the old historic district of Bucharest. There's some lovely, wonderful things to see within the city. But Nora, you take it from here.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, we are going to start with the capital. And in addition to the description that we've made to the itinerary of the tour, so we're not only focusing on, through Dacre, on things that happen in the novel, but of course, we have no choice but visit real historical places too. This one in Bucharest that you can see the picture of is also a very good example, and it's the old courtyard where Vlad the Impaler himself ruled from. So that's one of the highlights. And unfortunately, right now it is under renovation. It has been under renovation for many, many years, but we are looking forward to how beautifully they're going to bring it back to life. Still, we are going to see the sites and really be close to where Vlad the Impaler actually roamed around.
One of these places that he roamed around, even though he didn't live in, may have visited here, is Bran Castle, which is the #1 tourist site in the country. But the connection, folks, are these two sketches you see right here. So all these people that you see writing on the internet, there is no Dracula's castle, this is just a tourist trap. I just cannot keep up with all this. So I do it once a month maybe, but it's no, Vlad Dracula did not. It was on the border between Wallachia and Transylvania. It was a border crossing when he was in charge of Wallachia. Maybe he did stop in here. But the most important thing, folks, you see in front of you, the two sketches that Bram Stoker saw when he was doing his research for Dracula. These two sketches are of Bran Castle, but back in the day, they were called something different, Dorisborg. These are the only two sketches of any castles in any of the books Bram had at his disposal that he listed in the back of his notes from the London Library. So it stands to me, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he described this castle you see on the left. Furthermore, I will be reading to you when we stand outside of it, the way he wrote that description. And to me, it's so typical of Bram, the artist inside Bram, the visual guy, to have to look at a picture to describe the castle in the way he does. And it's very, very similar to the sketches that you see. Now, notwithstanding, Bram didn't go inside, so he had to actually have another castle for the inside. And he did that. But you have to come with us to Scotland if you actually want to see it on one of our other trips. But he, like typical Bram, merged the inside of Slane's castle with the outside of Bran Castle to make his fictional castle that is placed on top of a volcano in the Kalamani National Park. And that's a fictional castle, but we will go to the location and we will see, if the weather permits, a plaque that actually says this is the spot. So that's the short version of how these three pictures come together to give you definitive proof of how Bram created his fictional castle.
Thank you, Dacre. And this is also a brilliant opportunity for those of you who like to dress up. I know I do. And every time we visit the castle, we do a photo with Dracula's castle, if possible at dusk, or even in the evenings, in the nights. It's very nicely illuminated. And if you want to wear a costume, this is the time for it, like, absolutely. And our hotel actually in Bran is like 4 or 5 minutes walk from the castle. The hotel itself and its restaurant has a direct view to the castle, so it's absolutely the place to be on one of the evenings. They're celebrating Dracula.
And just outside of Bran, the big city, it's a fairly big city, Brasov, you can see even they celebrate Dracula with Dracula Restaurant. And this is one of the cooler things we found a couple of years ago. And this past year, we all went in because we were curious. We wanted something to eat. We ended up having a very good meal, but the vibe in there is great. Great for photo ops outside and inside as well. It just shows that as we are tourists coming to the country to celebrate Dracula, both Vlad and Count, that they do the same thing in the country. They're not ashamed of it. They embrace it. Businesses do the same thing. But Nora, why don't you tell a little bit about the actual connection here in Brasov between Vlad the Impaler? Because again, everywhere we go, there's some connection between Vlad and the Count, and we will highlight that to you guys. But Nora, tell about how this works with Vlad.
Well, first off, Brasov is one of the larger cities that we are going to be visiting. A great vibe. The center, old town center, is really, really magnificent and very vibrant. But there is, of course, a legend linked to it, and they say that Vlad the Impaler actually met the love of his life here, a local German girl called Katharina Siegel. And there's a bit of a love story there, impossible love story with two worlds that don't combine. And yeah, we'll tell you more about that when we are in Brasov.
Yeah, and it's really nice to follow the feedback of scholars such as our guest today on this story. But this is something that we take up maybe in the Q&A session, right?
Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah, and before we switch, though, I got to make sure you guys look at the middle picture below Katharina Siegel. One of the cooler things that I love about this, that may or may not have anything to do with any of the Draculas, are these fortified villages, these fortified churches in villages. Every time I go into one, and I think Nora and Gloria brought me to 5 or 6 different ones over the years, they all have a very similar theme, and that is fortification, high walls with towers and places to store food that protect the castle and places for people to go to school during the time of siege. So you saw that map at the beginning, the Ottoman Empire and the Austrian-Hungarians fighting all the time over hundreds of years. People living in this country had to prepare themselves to survive during siege. And without going into any more detail, you walk into these things, they're so well created, so well built by the Saxons, that they have lasted for centuries, and many of them are being renovated. So you walk in, they look very, very old. Nora and I found some graffiti written on benches in some of these churches going back to the 1400s. And it's so cool to sit back. And so modern civilization have not changed things much in some of these places. It's so cool to see this, and climbing up ladders and getting to the top of some of these towers. It's unbelievably cool to walk back in time.
Absolutely. There's over 300 of these fortified churches all over Transylvania, and we take you to the best ones, like to the best one, like Herman Honigberg. You really feel like you're walking into like you're living the history. It's if you look around and just don't look at your modern attire, you're there. You're transported back in time, like through the graffitis and through the architecture and through the atmosphere that is there. It's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah. Speaking of attire, a group of vampires here, as you can see, showed up last year at a Halloween. And we highly encourage you, if you do want to have some cool photos like we did last year, bring a costume. And this is us standing outside the footprint of the house, the birthplace of Vlad Dracula, and we go in and have a wonderful meal. But it is fun to wander around Sighishuara, which we'll get into later. But this is a great place to have a meal. So I hand it back to Nora to talk about the really good food. Well, let me just say this: I was skeptical of first going to eat what I ignorantly thought would be just like goulash and stew and very naive and old-fashioned food. Nothing could be farther from the truth. There is such a good variety of food. We've had people on very special diets that have to only eat vegetables or certain things can be easily accommodated, because this part of this country is very sophisticated. You get great variety of food, pretty good wine and beer as well. Anyway, sorry, back to Nora.
No worries. I love hearing good things about my country. Yeah, so this one is going to be another opportunity for you to dress up. We have day full of excitement. On day 3, we leave Brasov. We go through the fortified church of Herman, and then we end up in Sighishuara, which is actually the place where Vlad was born. And in the exact house where he was born, this is where we're going to have dinner. It's a very good restaurant, and like Dacre said, we do focus on local cuisine, but of course we can adapt all the meals to your special diet if you have one.
And we serve it on a plate with the emblem of the Order of the Dragon.
Exactly. And there are always surprises and wonderful atmosphere at this restaurant. And there's always a dragon or two, just like you said, the coat of arms of the Dracu house, Draculești, Casa Draculești, that has to do with the dragon, also the name. We'll tell you all about it when we are there. Right, Gloria?
Of course. It's one of the most recognized theories regarding the etymology of the name Dracula. But more of that later on during the trip. Here's an example of what a smorgasbord of Romanian food could look like. As Dacre was mentioning, there's something for everybody, both vegetarian and lots of meat too. Speaking of time capsules and traveling back in time, Sighishuara is just the right place. Well, the whole of Transylvania is the right place to do it, but in Sighishuara, you actually get to feel like you are teleported back in medieval times. With the UNESCO Medieval Citadel, we take a tour there. And the rest of the day, of day 4, is actually the first day where you get really good time for exploring Transylvania on your own and taking pictures. There are excellent corners of Instagrammable places in this town, and a lot of it's a small town, but there are at least 3 very interesting museums where you could spend hours. And there's also the Dracula investigation, which we recommend to visit, that allows you an insight in Vlad the Impaler's life.
Let me jump in and just say, take a close look at the ground. You see cobblestones. So if you do come on the trip, and we hope you all do at some point, make sure you have sturdy footwear. It's not a great place for very fashionable flats. Your feet will be really sore because uneven cobblestones the whole way. So what I always try to figure out is I like to have a pair of sort of hiking shoes with me to wear in these type of cities, and a nicer pair if I'm going to put on my costume, and so I can kind of get by with 2 pairs of shoes. So just think about that as well, because we are stepping back to like the 14th century when you walk through stuff like this. Well preserved as it is, it's still, there's ladders to climb up, there's steps to climb up. So ladies want to make sure you have trousers as well if you're going up steep stairs and so on.
Speaking of steep stairs.
Yeah, so you could see we've got to navigated the top of this incredibly cool big cross in the Borgo Pass. So what's cooler than going to the place that is probably one of the most identifiable places in the whole Dracula myth, and that's the Borgo Pass, as Harker did in his carriage, and where he ended up meeting up with Count Dracula's carriage. We are going to see the statue of Bram Stoker, as you can see here, and we also climbed up to the top to get the most great viewscape of all surrounding area by being up on top of this huge identifiable cross. And back to Nora or Gloria about inside the really cool monastery.
No matter the weather, remember, Dacre, on one of the tours, we had like thunderstorms up there. We were there in brilliant sunlight. The atmosphere is not weather dependent up there. I can tell you that. And we are going to also experience good quality Orthodoxism because right at the Borgo Pass, there is a monastery that has beautiful frescoes, a wooden church. Now they're working on a newer church that is made out of stone, but I hope that usually they just keep the old wooden churches on the side. It's really a good sight to see. Remember all these scenes from the movies where the priest was all dressed up in gold, and well, that's what actually happens in Romanian Orthodox churches, and this is how the interiors look like. It's no exaggeration. It's heavily ornate with lots of colors and frescoes and pictures from the Bible, so it's like really heavy.
It's telling the story instead of, because not a lot of people could read the words in the day, right? So the stories are told through images, which just it's like walking into a walls full of stories, but graphic novels.
Yeah, ancient graphic novels. Beautifully said, Dacre.
Yeah, and part of our journey is getting up to this Kalamani National Park. So we have 2 options, because obviously when you get up to high elevation, you get in the mountains, as Nora just said, weather can move in, come out quickly. So luckily, there's a very cool interpretive center for the whole forest. And not only do we get to see the link to what's the most dominant thing in the area, this massive mountain range that was a volcano. So that's why you see here at the Interpretive Center volcano, but it's where I'm pointing to is where the lines of longitude and latitude in Bram's notes lined up. That's the location of Bram's fictional castle. And you will learn the significance of why he put it there on the trip. But if you're also into flora and fauna, then there's lots of information about how they have this massively, incredibly well-preserved forest, no motorized vehicles to protect the integrity of the forest, cut down on erosion and so on. But we get to see this one day. We're not sure if it's going to be the first day we're there, the second day, because we want to make sure that if there's a bad weather day, we go indoors rather than outdoors.
Yeah, we've saved 3 nights here just to make sure we arrive in the late evening of day 5, and then we stay there for another 2 days, full days. So that is to allow some margin in case there's a storm and we cannot take the hike up to the location of the fictional castle Dracula. On the first day, at least we have some reserve on the second full day. So we have quite some time here, but there's also a plenitude of activities that are available. Among others, the visit to the interpretive center, where you see Dacre pointing at the actual location of the fictional castle Dracula, as discovered in the notes of Bram Stoker. And of course, also the day reserved for the hike. And then there's also the town we are going to stay at. It's quite a small thermal bath resort, but it's very exciting to be there. You get the real feel of a Romanian little town.
Yeah, so it gives you the possibility to not only have the hike if it's possible, if the weather is possible, but also like enjoy the spa facilities around. It's known in the whole country, this Vatradorne area, mineral spas, thermal spas. It's really, really nice.
So you see me standing here in the town of Bistrița on the left, and then Klausenberg on the right. Bistrița is where Jonathan Harker stopped after he got off his train and spent the night in the Golden Krone Hotel. So the local historical authorities have actually put a plaque up showing this is a location of the original Golden Krone Hotel. I'm standing here with my Bram Stoker bobblehead and my book, and we normally read an excerpt about what Harker's impressions were of the Golden Krone Hotel. So another great photo op and a link to the actual novel. And then we also stopped in Klausenberg, which is the other place he spent the night. When we're in Klausenberg, as Nora said, also known as Cluj nowadays, if anybody knows about this, you can Google it if you're into the paranormal, not so much into Dracula, but the Hoia Baciu forest is one of the most haunted forests in Europe. Two good friends of mine, we're two guys in the last 10 years that have sort of brought this into mainstream popular culture. I helped them write a grant, which they got to make a map about this place. We won't actually have time to go into it, but we're going to have coffee there. And if everything goes well, we're going to meet Marius, and he's going to tell us about some of the weird, strange things that happened there. I'll also have a printout to talk at one of our meals or on the bus about some of the cool stories that I've found about being in there as well.
I spent a couple of nights there. I got stories to tell.
Good. And you made it out. You made it out.
Oh, I did. Or did I?
Part of you did. Gloria, I've forgotten now. Anything else about this, about Klausenberg or Cluj we need to say?
Well, apart from the fact that it's my birthplace and a wonderful university town, it's the place where we conclude our tour, actually, and where we organize our farewell dinner. This is the place where you are going to fly out from. Of course, if you don't want to prolong your stay, if you're joining the tour, maybe you want to extend to have an extension of your stay in Romania. But otherwise, this is where we round up and we finish our tour. So this is Cluj has an international airport, a pretty newly renovated, or actually completely newly constructed one, really nice one, modern. So this is where, we say la revedere, which is goodbye in Romanian.
I just wanted to say that we're going to have our last meal together, our final evening in Cluj, along with mysteries and history. And hopefully we're going to also see Hotel Transylvania from the novel. And that was all I wanted to add to Cluj. Go ahead, Dacre.
No, there's lots of different logistics that Gloria can help you work through. And that is things that I've personally done. But again, Gloria can tell you. And nowadays, air travel is convenient, but it's also complicated. It all depends. Where are you coming from? You come from America like I am. I fly to Amsterdam to Bucharest. And sometimes it's easier to take that flight from Cluj back to Bucharest and fly out early the next morning. Or if you're Europe, you can fly into Bucharest, but you can go to Cluj. So it takes a savvy traveler to navigate what's the best way to do flights. But Gloria's going to tell you when to do it, and she'll help you do how to do it only once the trip is verified. So back to Gloria.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dacre. So bringing you to the booking details. Now, everyone here maybe is not joining the tour, and we're really grateful that you are joining the live talk anyway. But for those of you who want to join, and of course, we hope that it's as many of you as possible, as we do have a minimum number of participants in order to be able to confirm to organize the tour. We encourage you to, if you are decided, or if you're still giving it a thought, but if you are almost decided, to not wait too long. We have a deadline on the 15th of February. However, if you decided already, it's a first come, first served basis of booking. The amount of participants has been increasing the past days, so it's being booked up quite quickly now towards the end. So if you want to make sure that you have a spot on the tour, then I would say don't wait, just book. And we have a minimum amount of participants, which is 15, but we also have a maximum, which is 18. So we make it for the minivan. In case that we have a lot more, of course, I've mentioned that we might be able to receive a larger coach, but that comes only from a much larger number of participants on. So just think between 15 and 18 participants. So we need to be quite quick, also not because of the deadline, but also because of the fact that you are going to book your own flight. The flight is not included in the tour, and booking your own flight means that you need to book it also. I mean, it's good to book it quite soon, as flight prices are increasing as you get closer to the departure date. So if we have a minimum amount of participants met on the 15th of February or before that, you will be informed, and then you will be able to book your flight. So don't book your flight before we confirm the tour and your specific participation. The booking deposit will become non-refundable after we've confirmed. So don't worry about, oh, what happens if I book and then the tour doesn't happen? Do I get my money back? Of course, we won't get there. You will first pay the deposit after you've registered, and then we will confirm the tour when everybody has confirmed their participation. Then we'll have a final payment period, which will be in April, and the final payment will then become a non-refundable 1 month before the tour. So this is quite standard for all tour companies. Maybe you've already seen the booking form, and you can QR scan it here, or you can also go to our newly refurbished homepage, which I can quickly show. We have a pop-up here just for the remaining period until the deadline. And if you click on that one, you can also go from the main menu to the tour description. And there comes the whole itinerary. The price is 1,975 euros per person. It's in euros, although our company is based in Sweden, just to make it smooth for everyone to join. Although if we have customers from guests from Sweden, we of course will accept a payment in Swedish crowns. And there comes the booking button, which takes you to this form, which is quite easy to fill in.
Which can actually be clicked in the top right-hand corner to either English or Swedish.
Or Swedish, exactly. And if I can add something, beginning in Bucharest and ending in Cluj actually gives you a lot of flexibility where it comes to your trip to Europe, because you can do something before landing in Bucharest and starting the tour and fly out of Cluj to Munich or to wherever your connection flight is back to the States. Or what I would personally recommend is come to flight into Bucharest, do the tour, end up in Cluj, maybe spend more days in Transylvania, or fly over or drive over to Budapest, which is quite close. And from there, you can continue on to whatever else you want to do in Europe. Am I right, guys?
You are very right. I think the best thing, if you have such thoughts, whether you're in Europe or in the US or wherever else, in Australia or so, let's then take that individually, and you have Nora and myself to ask for ideas or advice. Also, if you need some inspiration, please follow us on Instagram. I know some of you do, and I'm grateful for that, and on Facebook. And just drop us an email whenever you are wondering about anything. We are very grateful for you joining us today. We are thanking you for having joined us on trips, those who already have. I know there's quite a bunch of you in the audience. And to those who are intending to do it, you are really helping us doing something good for Romania and for responsible tourism, and in specifically for responsible Dracula tourism. So thank you so much for listening today.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And if it doesn't come up in the Q&A, somebody asked me about, preferred clothing, layering, and the tricks to do with suitcases and packing. So I'll just say that's a teaser. If you're getting serious about this, we can do that in Q&A.
Excellent.